Welcome to the League of Women Voters kickoff meeting, Tips and Tricks for the Drought, Be Water Wise. My name is Leona Judson. I'm chair of the Advocacy Committee, and I would like to welcome not only the public, but our membership as well to this event. The League has been a vital organization for over 100 years and over 60 years in Sonoma County. We are best known for our work on voting rights and impartial voting information. Perhaps you have attended many of our nonpartisan candidate and ballot measure events. But we do much more than that. Advocating for causes that we feel strongly about is also part of our mission. Tonight, we are wearing our advocacy hat. We do a kickoff meeting each fall to inspire everyone to work on our priorities during the year. Our current priorities include criminal justice, climate change, including water resources, making democracy work, homelessness and affordable housing, and engaging our youth. Given the ongoing drought and the growing threat of climate change, we decided to kick off this fall with a panel on water resources. Water shortages impact everything we do. It is a finite resource from many competing demands. Our panel tonight will provide not only an overview of the situation here in Sonoma County, but specific information about what each of us can do to preserve this precious resource. As I mentioned earlier, the presentation will soon be posted on our YouTube channel for those that might have missed the event or want to view it again. The link to our YouTube channel can be found on our webpage at www.lwvsonoma.org. I've also posted it in the chat. We hope you will be inspired by tonight's presentation and will take away ideas that you can implement in your daily lives. And please consider joining the League as we work towards a better community for all. Now I'd like to turn over the program to Jim Masters, our moderator for tonight's event. He will introduce our panelists and start our program. Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you, Leona. My name's Jim Masters. I'm a member at large on the Sonoma County chapter of the League of Women Voters, and I'll be your moderator this evening. And it'll be my job to keep the current flowing. So Leona mentioned that this was going to be on YouTube. So I guess that means it's not being live streamed. Did that work? I don't know. So everyone put yourself on speaker view, because we have several speakers and that will keep the person speaking in front of you. So the drought is not over, as we said in the advertising material for this. Despite the recent rain and it seemed to put a lot of water on the ground, we still are very much in a drought, and our water storage capacity is at an all-time low. Northern California has been hard hit. The Western United States has been hard hit by the drought on and off over the last 20 years. So we thought water and where it comes from and how it's managed would be a very timely topic for this evening. We're going to hear first from Sonoma Water, which is the county-wide agency that manages water. And then you're going to hear from each of the cities, Petaluma, Rohnert Park, and Santa Rosa. Again, put yourself on speaker view. We ask them, where does the water come from? How's the drought affected water resources? What's your goal for resident water conservation, and is that goal being met? Do industrial and agricultural users within the district have conservation goals or mandates? What are the resources the cities offer for its ratepayers to save water? How can they access those resources? What tips do you have for them for saving water? So not every speaker is going to be able to address every one of these questions. But we hope we'll all get our feet wet with some valuable information. And Lynn Dooley is going to put a document in the chat that has the contact information for the speakers and the websites for their organizations. And we urge you to go up on their websites and get further into the material that you're going to hear about tonight. So we're going to start with the County Water Agency, and we're going to hear from two people from there. Jay Jasperse, he's the Chief Engineer and Director of Groundwater Management for the Sonoma County Water Agency. He's responsible for planning the agency's capital projects for both surface and groundwater. And he is the plan manager for 3 groundwater sustainability agencies. And many of us in the league attended one or more of the recent presentations on the draft groundwater sustainability plans that are being submitted to the state. The other person from Sonoma Water is Paul Piazza. He's the Water Use Efficiency Manager and has responsibility for managing the activities of the Sonoma Marin Saving Water Partnership, which is a consortium of 13 water utilities in Sonoma and Marin counties. And they have a new website, which is also, this consortium has a new website, which is also on the information sheet that Lynn is posting in the chat. So with that, I will turn it over to Jay to start us off.
Thank you,
Jim,
Jim.
may I quickly add something before the speaker begins? If the audience has any questions that they would like to ask, please put it in the chat. I will be monitoring that and we will have time for Q&A.
Okay, Jay, take it away.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everybody. Jay Jasperse here from Sonoma Water. Good evening, everybody. I am going to give the first part of the presentation for Sonoma Water, and I was asked to focus on to set the table tonight and talk a little bit about, in a general sense, the water supply conditions in Sonoma County. So I'll talk about reservoir levels and groundwater levels. Those are obviously our 2 major sources of water in our region. And then I'm going to talk very briefly on some of the things Sonoma Water is doing in terms of programs and measures to mitigate the drought that don't touch on the conservation. All the other speakers, I think, are going to focus a lot on the conservation side. I'll talk some of the things Sonoma Water is doing on the other side of drought mitigation. And then I'll turn it over to Paul to talk about the Sonoma Marin Saving Water Partnership. So let me just start with some background information for you. And this shows a histogram of rainfall from 1976 to 2029 for Santa Rosa. And you'll see that we've noted there, on the very far left shows the driest years. To the very right is the wettest years. This is an annual totals. And you can see that in 2020 and 2021, these were both very dry years, rivaling the 1976 and 1977 as drought of record. I will say, and it's really important to remember this, that when you think about the impacts of drought, you can't just look at rainfall totals. You need to look at temperature also. And we've had substantial increase in overall temperature since the 1977 drought. And so increased temperature really exacerbates the impacts of drought. It dries the soils, dries the vegetation out, reduces groundwater recharge. And so the impacts of drought really are affected by 2 major things: rainfall totals, but also temperature. And so what we see today with 2021 almost as bad as 1977 in inches of rainfall, I would suggest that the increased temperature has probably exacerbated drought impacts for current times. So let's look at reservoir levels from our 2 major regional reservoirs that Sonoma Water operates with the Corps of Engineers. And this is Lake Mendocino up near Ukiah. And this is for the last 2 years. And you see the gray dash line. This is looking at storage of the reservoir on the right, left axis there across the 2 years, calendar years. And you can see the blue line shows the actual water storage. So working 2 years ago on the left to the right is the current time. And when you see the water supply pool is the bluish shaded. And that's when Sonoma Water operates releases from the reservoir when the storage, the blue line is in the blue shaded area. The Corps of Engineers operates when it's above that in the flood control pool. Two things I'll point out here is that you see on the left side where the blue line is up in the flood control pool, but the water was not released. That's because we have a new experimental program, first of its kind in the country, working with the Corps of Engineers, where we're using forecast information and they're actually holding on to that water. And so in 2020, which was a dry year, as you just saw, the Corps of Engineers actually held on to about another 10, 11,000 acre feet, which really helped us in the first year of this 2-year drought. Unfortunately, as you can see, as you move to the right into 2021, 2021 was so dry, we never got up there to utilize this new technology again, because we just didn't have enough rain. You can see on the very far right where it's kicking up a little bit. That is the impact of the recent storm events that we had at the end of October and early November. As you can see, it helps, but we're still got a long way to go. So despite the AR category 5 that we experienced, a very strong storm, we still have a lot of rain we need to get back to non-drought conditions. This is our larger reservoir, Lake Sonoma, off of Dry Creek near Healdsburg. Again, this is the same kind of thing where the water supply pool, Sonoma Water operates it, flood control, the Corps of Engineers operates it. This reservoir is over 3 times as large as Lake Mendocino. And you can see the continual decrease over the 2 years, 2 dry years, and then the recent uptick from the recent storms. This is about 50% of capacity, whereas the other reservoir is about 30% right now. So this one is in better shape. Then in terms of the groundwater, I'll just show you from the one aquifer, the Santa Rosa Plain groundwater levels. And we have the shallow and a deep aquifer. This shows water levels over time for 2 different wells, one in blue and one in orange, over several years. And you can see the most recent data on the right is getting close to being the lowest for each of these wells that have been monitored since the late 80s, early 90s, but it correlates to other dry years in the past. The deep aquifer, here's 2 other wells that are on the deeper aquifer, which is where most of the pumping is. And you can see that these groundwater levels are about the same as some of the prior droughts, and especially the 2014 drought, which was also a severely dry year. And so again, we monitor these groundwater levels also. The impacts of water levels in groundwater have a delay compared to the more instantaneous reservoir levels of surface water. Now I'll just touch on some of the Sonoma Water activities other than water conservation that we're working on. We're constantly have activities in terms of river and flow and reservoir storage management. And there's a lot of programs and work with the state and stakeholders there, and really guarding our, trying to be as efficient as possible in our flow releases to provide in-stream flows to meet demands, but also to preserve as much storage. And we really are constantly working with our stakeholders in the state on managing that. Groundwater conjunctive management. Groundwater banking is something that we're really keen on. It's statewide, but also here, taking Russian River water, potable drinking water, and putting it in to recharge the groundwater aquifers during the wet season or during wet years. Another way to recharge, different than groundwater banking, which puts the water down and injects it into wells to get the deeper aquifer. The shallow aquifers you could take and you can spread flood waters over the ground surface to recharge groundwater that way in the shallow aquifers. So those are 2 ways that we're really looking to utilize winter water and manage surface water and groundwater strategically. And the last thing I'll just touch on is Sonoma Water, with all of its water contractors, there's 10 agencies in Sonoma Marin, are looking at a study where we've removed all the jurisdictional boundaries, and we've developed a model with all of our systems together. And we're applying drought stress test scenarios and looking at where our system is vulnerable, or maybe there's different ways to operate, or maybe regionally there's some projects that we just didn't envision when we looked individually. But by looking at it more collectively, we're seeing some things that maybe we can do some projects for the betterment of the region for drought and water shortage resiliency. This study is also going to look at seismic issues too. So, but right now we're working on the drought side of things. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Paul. And while Paul's getting going, here's a few links. I know there's some other information on links, but Sonoma Water, Sonoma Marin Saving Water Partnership, and then Sonoma County Groundwater Management links too, if folks are interested in the groundwater side of things. And with that, I will stop sharing and turn it to Paul.
Thank you, Jay. So I'm going to take you on just a really brief tour of the Saving Water Partnership's new website. Maybe a thumbs up by you all if you're able to see this okay. Jim Masters touched on who we are. The Sonoma Marin Saving Water Partnership is 13 utilities in Sonoma and Marin County. So essentially it's Cloverdale, Healdsburg, Windsor, Santa Rosa, Rohnert Park, Cotati, Petaluma, heading out towards Sonoma, the city of Sonoma as well, and then Valley of the Moon, North Marin Water District, and Marin Municipal Water District. The last is in the Larkfield-Wickiup area, where we have one of our only private-owned utilities with Cal American Water. So those are the utilities that make up the partnership. We've all banded together to do conservation in a regional approach, recognizing that pooling our resources and our collective efforts, we simply just get a lot more savings and are better able to get the messaging out to our constituents. So for the drought, you'll see on the partnership's homepage, right dead center here, we've got linked information about the drought currently. Just scrolling down, you can find information on the homepage here about drought tips and practices, such as the current one about making sure your irrigation is off for the fall winter months. There's additional information about workshops and events that's happening, such as this innovative bike ride, the Tour de Drought, that's happening around the reservoirs in Marin County in October and November. Encourage all of you cyclists to look into that. And we also provide timely programmatic information updates about items like increased rebate incentives, such as described here with the town of Windsor. So just quickly, I want to take you on a quick tour to make you aware that there's a lot of information available about both regional and local utility programs. I encourage all of you to kind of surf around on the partnership's website for information. We've got a great regional plant database that's a new feature of the partnership's website. There's information about our Water Smart plant labeling program, which is available at nurseries throughout Sonoma and Marin counties to help customers identify plants that are low water use. There's information about a water and energy saving toolkit. It's available for checkout at all of the libraries in Sonoma County. It includes water efficiency upgrade equipment like shower heads and aerators that you can install and keep when you return the toolkit. We also partner with Sonoma County Master Gardeners to offer the Garden Sense program if you need a little help with information about how to remove your lawn and put in low water landscapes. There's an irrigation scheduling tool and a series of other programs that I would encourage you to take a closer look at. We've got it set up so that this is really a regional resource hub for water conservation information for all of our retail partners. It's easily searchable. If you're looking for information from your specific provider, you can simply go to one of the local cities that you get water from, and you'll dial in a little bit closer into all of the different program offerings that are available in your area. I thought I'd give you a quick tour going back to the plant picker. For those of you that are looking for information about low water use plants for your landscape, we are just getting started and working with master gardeners to kind of detail what are their top picks for Sonoma and Marin counties for low water use. Each of these provides a little deeper dive into information about the plant. So I would encourage you to kind of look around here. What's really unique about this as well is that you have the ability to set up your own account so that you can save information about these plants, create lists, so that it makes it easy for you to go to local nurseries later to find these plants that you're interested in installing. Moving on, I want to just quickly highlight some of the information available on the drought page. So here you'll note that we've made it very easy for people to look at the current status from each of the utilities of the partnership in terms of what's expected for them for meeting local drought reduction. So here I'm hovering over the city of Cloverdale, who currently has a mandatory 35% reduction. You'll see there's some variation from each of the partner utilities, but these will link directly out to each of their websites to more specific and detailed information about what is required of people that receive water from each of these utilities to meet those mandated cutbacks. Going back to the home page. Again, just want to let you know that this is meant as a regional resource hub. We just launched this within the last couple of months, and we're going to be continuing to build this out to provide a whole host of additional information, including video resources for those folks that are looking for DIY type information for doing water saving projects around their home, whether it's landscape related, whether it's information about installing gray water at your home, such as was recently provided in a 3-part series webinar on gray water. We're going to be linking those into the website here and building out those video resources over time. So with that, I'm going to just cut my time short and open it up for the next speakers to come in. But if you have any follow-up questions, I'll be sticking around to help answer them.
Thank you, Paul. It sounds like this new consortium is really going to make some waves. So we're going to jump right in on Petaluma with Gina Benedetti-Petnic. She has to leave in a few minutes. She's the Assistant Director of Public Works for Petaluma. She's going to start us off and then turn it over to Chelsea Thompson after she has to leave. Gina, take it away.
Thank you very much. I am, pulling up my notes. There we go. So we did moments ago have our new Director of Public Works on the call listening in, and he had to jump off to the same meeting. So I'm afraid I was going to introduce him and now I can't, but I'm the Assistant Director of Public Works. And I'm delighted to be here, a big fan of the League of Women Voters. So I'm just going to introduce a few slides and provide an overview, and then I'm going to let Chelsea take it from there. So City of Petaluma supplies water and sewer service to about 20,000 residential, commercial, industrial, and institutional accounts located within Petaluma's potable water service area. That's a little different than our city limits. So we always make that distinction. It's a little bigger than our city limits. And we also provide wastewater treatment to Pengrove. And there's some statistics on this slide about the amount of water and sewer pipe that we maintain here in town. And the lower photograph is a great aerial photo. I love this, of our Ellis Creek water recycling facility. It is our wastewater treatment plant near the banks of the Petaluma River. And the top slide, even more importantly, is one of our great operations crew at the Ellis Creek facility. So we treat between 1,600 and 2,150 million gallons of wastewater a year. And in 2020, we produced 1,756 acre feet of recycled water. And for those of you who aren't engineering nerds, picture an acre feet as a foot of water covering an acre. It's a lot of water. So we produced 1,756 of those in 2020. And our annual potable water offset was about 2 to 3%. Most of our recycled water is delivered outside the city's water service area, and we use it to irrigate agriculture and vineyards. And when I say the potable water offset, what that means is that our recycled water offsets our potable water by that amount. So it's just 2 to 3% of what our potable needs are. And we use recycled water, again, largely outside city limits, but also some city limit distribution as well. So our recycled water goes to schools in town. It goes to some city parks. It goes to public landscape areas. And then outside of town, it goes, and the bulk of where we send our recycle is to agricultural partners and vineyards particularly. Next slide. Water supply. Sonoma Water provides us, as you learned in the last presentation, our surface water, principally from the Russian River. And the surface water supply that we get from Sonoma Water is 95 to 100% of our water supply. So we're heavily dependent upon the Sonoma Water supply. In a typical year when we're not facing a water shortage supply, like we were this year and last, the city doesn't rely on groundwater for potable water supply. However, we do have some city wells that we will tap when we need to in low water years. So from July to October this year, the city pumped about 1 million gallons per day of groundwater to help offset the supply. And that amounted to about 30 million gallons a month and actually supplemented us to about 10% of our total supply. That might be a record. I bet Jay knows that answer. As a result of water conservation this drought, the flows to our wastewater treatment plant were lower. So if you can imagine wastewater from all of the residences and businesses coming into a plant are conserving very well, as it happens during the drought, thanks to our water conservation efforts. There's less water going in, so we make less recycled water going out. And so we had less available recycled water for use to offset our potable water for landscape irrigation this year. And that's not unusual. And next slide is about our water supply planning. City of Petaluma, we have just updated our urban water management plan in 2020 that has a 25-year planning horizon. And then we have a water shortage contingency plan, or we like acronyms, it's our WSCP. And that includes a very detailed description, as most WCPs would do, of our shortage stages. We have 6 stages with increasing degrees as you go from the lowest at stage 1 up to the most severe conservation measures in stage 6. And we outline what those measures are in that plan. Currently, the City of Petaluma is in stage 4 of our water shortage contingency plan, as we are still responding to the current drought and water shortage conditions. And I will, with that, introduce Chelsea Thompson to walk you through our drought response and our water conservation program. Chelsea's been hugely instrumental in this program for many years, and she's our boots on the ground and our champion at City of Petaluma on water conservation. And with that, Chelsea, I'll let you take it away. Thanks.
Thank you, Gina. So we do have a water conservation program. It's a year-round program to help residential and commercial water customers conserve water, not just through the drought, but all year round. This graph shows really, I'll kind of go through, they have more slides than I'll be able to cover in 5 minutes. So I'll run through some of these kind of quickly. But this shows our per person water use over time. The 2009 Water Conservation Act set a goal of achieving a 20% statewide reduction in urban per capita water use by 2020. Petaluma's target was this red line of 141, and we exceeded that target in 2020. And this just shows our downward trend that we've been using less water per person over time. As Gina mentioned earlier, the city gets the majority of its potable water from Sonoma Water, whose reservoirs are currently at low levels due to 2 consecutive dry years. This is a timeline of the city of Petaluma's drought response since the governor and Sonoma County drought declarations. We are currently, since September 13th, the city of Petaluma's city council implemented stage 4 of its water shortage contingency plan with a mandatory 30% reduction. And we also proclaimed a local drought emergency at that same time. So with the current stage 4, there are several water use restrictions which are listed here. One of the biggest ones is that outdoor irrigation is limited to Tuesday and Saturday only from 7 p.m. to 8 a.m. And we also have no planting of new or existing landscapes that require water. Those are two of the most major water use restrictions. We don't allow washing down of pavement with potable water, vehicle washings at commercial facilities only. There's no operating ornamental water fountains and features. No filling of new pools or spas or topping off of existing pools and spas. Water served in restaurants is by request only. Operators of hotels and motels are to provide guests with the option of having their towels and linens laundered. Street sweepers are using recycled water for street cleaning, and there is additional water hauler restrictions with stage 4. The city began dry weather messaging in early 2021 in coordination with the Sonoma Marin Saving Partnership to prepare for anticipated water shortage conditions. Once the city implemented its water shortage contingency plan in May, we pushed out a large public outreach campaign that has been ongoing through the drought. This outreach campaign is really important to get the word out to the public about the drought and to educate customers about water conservation programs that are available to them and inform on changes in water supply conditions and plan stages. And then internally, I'll just mention that the city, in addition to our public outreach campaign, we've made a lot of internal changes to cut back on water use. We've turned off irrigation or significantly reduced irrigation to all 47 of our city parks and landscape areas. The Parks Department has been prioritizing trees, so we've been hand watering trees. And the city's drought outreach campaign has included information on tree care and how important it is to cut back or shut off outdoor irrigation to significantly reduce water use while still watering trees to keep them alive through the drought. We also recently coordinated with Daily Acts organization to do a webinar on tree care during drought times. And that webinar is still available on their website at dailyacts.org. So here's a look at our performance the drought. In July and August, we were in stage 3, which was a mandatory 25% reduction citywide. We met those goals. And again, in September and October, when we went to stage 4 with a mandatory 30%, we met those water use targets as well. The city's water conservation is a year-round program. We've had over 13,000 program participants since the beginning of our program. We offer free WaterWise house calls year-round, even outside of the drought. The WaterWise house call program is a free residential water audit. During COVID, we're not doing indoor water audits, but we offer a DIY leak kit. So with detailed instructions so that water customers can perform their own audits. We also do a full outdoor audit where we run irrigation systems and look for leaks and provide efficient irrigation schedule, etc. We have a Mulch Madness program, which is a free sheet mulching program where we provide materials to transform thirsty turf into a drought tolerant landscape. And I have to stop right now. This presentation will be shared with everybody. So you'll have a list of Petaluma's water conservation program details.
Thank you, Chelsea. Great presentation. A lot of things going on there. We're now going to Rohnert Park, and we'll hear from Mary Grace Pawson. She's the Director of Development Services and the City Engineer for the City of Rohnert Park. She has an emphasis on the intersection of land use and water supply planning, and has also led a number of legislative and regulatory initiatives at the state level to streamline the development and permitting of recycled water supplies. So Mary Grace Pawson, we're ready for you.
Thank you very much for having me. And give me just a minute here to share my screen. No. All right, can you all see that? All right. I'm going to try to go quickly through Rohnert Park's water supply overview and what conservation programs are available to our residents. Like Petaluma. All right, come on, slideshow. Hang on just a second here, please. There we go. I'm going to be reporting a lot of information from our urban water management plan, and I'm going to be comparing what we thought in 2015 to what we thought in 2020, because this plan, something we turn into the state every 5 years, is something we take really seriously and use it as a really powerful tool for evaluating the reliability of our supply and the need for ongoing supply development and conservation efforts. Rohnert Park is somewhat unique in Sonoma County in that we have 3 sources of water supply with varying reliability. This particular graphic shows our supply reliability in normal and multiple dry years. On the left-hand side, you see our 2015 assessment, and on the right-hand side, you see our 2020 assessment. You see they're a little different. And again, that reflects some careful thought about the reliability of each supply. At the top, in the green bar, is our recycled water supply. We buy recycled water from the Santa Rosa subregional system. We have a contract for 1,350 acre-feet of recycled water. As Gina told you, that's enough water to flood an acre a foot high. It's also enough water for about 5 families at current water use rates in Rohnert Park. That is a pretty drought-tolerant supply. And we use it primarily for outdoor irrigation. We pump 2,577 acre-feet of groundwater. That's the orange bar. That is a pumping limit established by our city council in 2004, and it reflects an analysis of the sustainability of our groundwater basin. So we again view that as a very robust and drought-tolerant supply because we manage it to be that way. The red bar is our purchased water from Sonoma Water, and like most agencies in Sonoma County, this is the majority of our water supply. In 2015, we thought our reliable supply from the agency was just under 6,400 acre-feet. We've reduced that reliable assessment a little bit, and it's a result of some technical changes to a water allocation methodology. But overall, Rohnert Park operates in normal and multiple dry years with about 10,000 acre-feet of water supply. We'll see if we can get this to turn. This is our dry year supply. And again, you'll see on the left-hand side, our 2015 assessment, on the right-hand side, our 2020 assessment. It is in the single dry year where we're seeing our reliability assessments reduce. And it really is a reflection of the fact that as we understand more about the performance of water supplies given climate change, we're inclined to believe they're less reliable than we thought at one time. Again, top of the chart, the 1,350 acre-feet of recycled water, the 2,577 acre-feet of groundwater. And in dry years, we really believe we're going to get less water from Sonoma Water because of the need to conserve. We combine these water sources to meet our projected demand, of about 7,300 acre-feet at build out. So from a reliability standpoint, our customers enjoy a robust supply. And then we use what's called a conjunctive use strategy to manage drought and other disruptions. During normal operations, about 21% of our supply is from recycled water, about 32% is from wells, and about 47% is purchased from Sonoma Water. When the agency supply is constrained, we still use 21% of our, or we still provide 21% of our supply from recycled water We increase our well pumping, we reduce our purchases from Sonoma Water. And when Sonoma Water supply is available to us, we maximize our purchases from them. Again, that's the red part of the circle. We rest our groundwater wells and we continue to use recycled water for outdoor irrigation. And that ability to switch between multiple operating strategies provides us with a lot of flexibility and a lot of reliability for our customers. This graph, which is a little painful, illustrates that in numbers. On the left-hand column, you can see a % reduction in supply. In the middle, next column, you can see the volume that's available to us. In the very middle column is our demand. And you can see the city can tolerate over 25% disruption in supply before we really need to crank down on demand. And that doesn't mean we're out telling our customers we have plenty of water wasted, but it does mean that we can handle a fair amount of disruption and still provide reliable service. Groundwater monitoring supports our operational plan. This is a graphic of Rohnert Park with the red dotted lines being our city limits. The colored squares are our groundwater wells. The red ones are our monitoring wells, and we watch those very carefully in order to ensure that our pumping limit is working to preserve the groundwater supply. This is a hydrograph, very similar to what Mr. Jasperse showed you. The vertical axis is groundwater elevation. The horizontal axis is years in time. There was a period in the late 80s and early 90s where Rohnert Park was overpumping its groundwater supply. You can see the red line is 2004. It was the year our council adopted their water policy resolution, and you can see the groundwater recovered. And we're continuing to manage that groundwater supply to encourage that recovery and the sustainability of that supply. Chelsea shared with you Petaluma's mandated state targets. These are ours. We had a 2015 target of 140 gallons per capita per day. Our customers reduced their use to 92. Our 2020 target was 123 gallons per capita per day. Our customers held on to that water use profile of under 100. We're also working to meet the local water conservation target for 2021. It's a 20% reduction in diversions from the Russian River system. We achieved that through our conjunctive use strategy. We reduced our purchases from Sonoma Water. We increased our groundwater pumping. We also asked our customers to reduce their personal water use by 20%. Our customers achieved a 16% reduction through late summer and early fall, and we're continuing to encourage them to conserve water because we are not out of the drought. These are the resources offered to our customers. We include a high efficiency toilet rebate, a high efficiency clothes washer rebate, a greenhouse call program similar to Petaluma's. We offer a cash for grass program. We offer free mulch, and we're a proud participant in the Sonoma Marin Water Saving Partnership programs. Those are wonderful programs for our residents and for the whole community. And with that, thank you for having me here, and I'll certainly remain available for questions.
Thank you, Mary Grace. Very interesting. Our final presentation is from Peter Martin, the Deputy Director of Water Resources for the City of Santa Rosa. He's been there since February of 2020. Previously, he was the Water Resources Manager for Calaveras County Water District, and before that, a Water Resources Planner for the City of San Diego. So let's hear from Peter and Santa Rosa.
Okay, how's my presentation coming through? Is it look correct?
Looks good.
Okay. Well, thanks for that introduction, Jim. Very pleased to be here tonight. Definitely will kind of run through similar presentation that you've seen from the others. But, definitely want to reiterate that, the contractors in Sonoma Water do work collaboratively often, and we are always coordinating on this drought. So I'll have some slides that'll kind of explain that too as well. So just real briefly, I wanted to give you a few fast facts about Santa Rosa Water. We have an annual budget of about $150 million, provide water and sewer services to approximately 175,000 residents in Santa Rosa, and then regional wastewater treatment for 213,000. So It's a regional plant that also receives wastewater collection from Rohnert Park, Cotati, Sebastopol, and unincorporated portions of Sonoma County as well. We maintain over 1,200 miles of water and sewer pipe and treat and beneficially reuse 17 million gallons of recycled water per day. And finally, we employ 250 highly trained and skilled staff that I get to come to work with every day. You know, definitely our greatest asset, I should say. So in terms of our water supply portfolio, you heard a lot about Sonoma County's surface water supplies. They supply Santa Rosa about 92 to 93% of our water in most years. We do have a suite of municipal groundwater wells on Farmers Lane here in Santa Rosa. And then our urban recycled water system provides about 1% of our total use every year. While not shown on this pie chart here, water conservation is a huge part of our water supply portfolio. And I will explain that more in terms of what we've been doing during this drought. So I'll continue. I know there were some questions about recycled water, so I do have a couple slides on that next. In terms of recycled water, as I mentioned, we have the Laguna Regional Wastewater Treatment Plant, which produces an average of 6.6 billion gallons of highly treated recycled water annually. There's several reuse destinations for that recycled water, including the Geysers geothermal project, which produces enough green and renewable energy to power about 100,000 homes in Sonoma County. That is about 2/3 of our recycled water goes to that project. Of course, you heard about urban irrigation. We do have some urban irrigation here in Santa Rosa. Mary Grace explained that they too take some of that recycled water for urban use. Then we have our agricultural users as well. They are an interruptible supply, but they are a linchpin of our ability to get rid of recycled water every year. And then of course, while we try not to, we are also permitted to release this water into the Laguna de Santa Rosa. But our goal in any given year is to beneficially reuse 100% of that water at the other three uses. So while you may not think so, recycled water was constrained as a result of this drought. You can see that kind of dotted line there. That was our recycled water storage and production over this last year. In terms of comparison to the average, it fell significantly lower. Really, we did everything we could to optimize the supplies available to the agricultural users this year, recognizing the economic benefit that those folks provide to the county. In terms of priority, we do have contracts with the Geysers project and also, of course, our urban users. Mary Grace mentioned Rohnert Park, making sure that those are delivered first and then the agricultural users last. But we worked pretty early on with Windsor and the County of Sonoma to augment those deliveries to Geysers when water became available. And that allowed us to provide additional water to our agricultural users in the area. Nonetheless, they did receive only 40% of their historical irrigation allotments this year. So we had to do quite a bit of work to make sure we could maximize as much water for them, but they did not receive all their water this year. Typically, they do augment that water with their own groundwater supplies. So I'll just kind of highlight, we are very proud here at Santa Rosa of our 30 years of water conservation success. Over that 30 years, since 1990, there has been approximately $21 million invested. We have replaced, through direct toilet install replacement program, 56,000 toilets, as well as also some rebate programs. We're happy to say we've replaced 3.5 million square feet of turf with low water use plants. And we offer 9 types of rebates and incentive programs, and also 10 other technical resources that we can use to help customers through our Water Smart programs. All this has yielded approximately 7,100 acre feet of sustained reductions annually, and a 44% gross reduction in gallons per capita per day over that time frame. This is what I like to tout the most is that over 30 years, so since 1990, Santa Rosa water uses 14% less water than we did in 1990, despite a 53% increase in population during that time frame.
Wow.
In terms of our gross water conservation targets and meeting our 2020 requirements under Senate Bill SB X 7-7, we have met our target of 126 gallons per capita per day. Gross gallons per capita per day for Santa Rosa are 99 gallons. So we've been working in terms of responding to this drought for quite a while now. So I have this slide here that kind of gives you a snapshot of how long we've been working in response to this drought. Actually, our efforts really started last winter in 2020, but we did, at the time, Sonoma Water was notified that PG&E was going to reduce the amount of flows into Lake Mendocino, and they responded by filing a temporary change petition in the Upper Russian River. The State Water Resource Control Board allowed them to reduce their flows in the Upper Russian River. On April 21st, the governor stood in Lake Mendocino with Sonoma Water staff and declared a drought emergency in Sonoma and Mendocino counties. And April 27th, Sonoma County adopted a drought emergency. And we launched as a region with our partners and the contractors, the Drought is Here, Save Water campaign. On May 3rd, the Water Advisory Committee to Sonoma Water adopted a resolution urging Sonoma Water customers to reduce their use by 20% voluntarily. And then due to further constraints on water supplies in the Russian River, Sonoma Water filed another petition to allow them to reduce their flows. And that came with the 20% reduction in diversions for their water supply. That meant that they were going to have to reduce their availability of water for the contractors. So all the contractors had to respond. On May 18th, the city council here adopted a resolution requesting 20% voluntary water use reduction. And on June 14th, Sonoma Water's petition and order was adopted and received by Sonoma Water, allowing them to reduce their releases from the reservoirs, but mandating that they reduce their diversions as well. On June 29th, Santa Rosa City Council adopted a resolution declaring an emergency requiring 20% community-wide water use reduction. And on July, Sonoma Water instituted allocations for each of their contractors, meaning that the contractors would receive up to 20% less water than they had previously. That drought response on June 29th that I mentioned, the City Council declared a drought emergency and adopted stage 3 of the city's water shortage contingency plan. That directed staff to implement stage 3 requirements and ask the community to reduce their water use by 20%. And it also authorized the utilization of catastrophic reserve funds if necessary. In terms of what stage 3 means, we have a water waste ordinance that is always in effect. It requires that folks fix any leaks or breaks in their water system and prohibits overspray and runoff from properties. Stage 3 prohibitions, limits irrigation between the hours of 8 p.m. and 6 a.m. All shutoff nozzles are required for hoses. No washing of hard surfaces unless required for public health reasons. Restaurants are required to serve water only upon request, and hotels and lodging must institute messaging about linens washing only upon request. And of course, no pressure washing with potable water is allowed during this time frame without a variance. We immediately went into implementation and enforcement of these prohibitions. A lot of outreach was made to businesses and residents throughout Santa Rosa. Instituted water waste patrols, early water waste patrols, give people oops tickets, telling them, hey, you've got a problem here, and follow up and make sure they fix it. We also have a water waste reporting form, which is online, or folks can call our hotline at any time. We utilize automatic metering infrastructure. We have put in meters that collect data, all 53,000 of our accounts, and these convey routine data to our customer service folks, can identify when a customer has a leak. And then of course, we also have issued variances for certain health, safety, and construction activities related to potable water use. during this time frame. We do offer a variety of indoor and outdoor rebates. We have a clothes washer rebate. We also offer free water smart devices in terms of shower heads, faucet aerators, and toilet flappers. We offer a recirculating hot water pump rebate. And of course, we definitely focus on our outdoor irrigation efficiency upgrades. We recently increased our cash for grass rebate up to $1.50 per square foot. And we also have rainwater harvesting and gray water reuse rebates as well. We're very excited about our new Water Smart portal. Customers can track their water use on an hourly, daily, and weekly timestamp, and they can create kind of customized reports as well. So this allows people to actually track their water use in their home in ways when they haven't before. We're very excited about this because it helps us as just another tool to have these conversations with customers about the water use in their home or business. And we've seen an overwhelming response that's been positive so far. In terms of how we're doing, in October, the community reduced water use by 29% compared to that timeframe in 2020. In terms of our allocations from Sonoma Water, about 94% of our target allocation was utilized, and the City of Santa Rosa remains in stage 3 of the mandatory restrictions despite the recent rains. We are still not out of this drought. And overall, during that time frame, we saw a 23% reduction in water use by our community. So lastly, I just want to say, Santa Rosa Water is definitely here to help you save. We have our Water Smart resources page at srcity.org/watersmart. And for all latest drought updates, you can go to srcity.org/savewater. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Peter. We'll move to questions and answers from the chat. Leona Judson has been looking at that. Some of these are generic questions, and we'd let you decide which of you might have an answer for it. And some of them are specific to a particular agency. So Leona, what have you got as questions in the chat? You're muted. You're still muted, Leona.
I have a couple. Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I've got a couple of questions that I'll direct to Sonoma Water. One of them is, how can you get those yard signs? Somebody asked that question. Do yard signs about?
I'm going to take that one because I want to beat Peter to the punch and make sure they get them from me. Actually, if you happen to be a resident of Santa Rosa, I know they have some very specific Santa Rosa yard signs for the drought. You might want to take Peter up on his offer. And I do think that he posted a little information in the chat that their offices are open to the public at Santa Rosa Water. You can probably just show up there and pick one up. But I posted my email in the chat as well. You're welcome to contact me, and I can make one or hundreds available to you as your heart desires.
Okay. Now this is the question that I created. How many of your ratepayers have taken advantage of your various rebate programs? This could be addressed to any of the cities. What percentage?
I'll start. We get about 50 to 100 ratepayers taking advantage of one or more of our programs every year, pretty consistently.
I don't know the statistic for that. I do know our call volumes are up quite a bit. We've received about, at our peak, 500 to 800 calls a week, and similarly. But yeah, in terms of those numbers, I believe we do kind of have been reporting those on a monthly basis to Paul. So we do have some of those numbers right in terms of uptake of programs.
Yeah, we do have an annual report that's published on the Sonoma Marin Saving Water Partnership website every year that reports out on the activities of the partnership. So that's one good thing to keep in mind. But in terms of uptake, Sonoma County and Marin County conservation programs have been ongoing now for 20 years. more. I think Peter reported 40 years with the city of Santa Rosa. And so the uptick in participation is really dependent on the particular program that folks are interested in. And of course, there's been a lot of changes in technology over the years in terms of water conservation. We've seen toilets evolve from 5 gallons to 3.5 to low flow, which is indicative of 1.6 gallons per flush, to now toilets that use 1.28 or less. And so even participation in programs in the past doesn't necessarily mean that there aren't continued opportunities for people to participate and save.
Well, I have a comment.
And for
from-
Petaluma,
I'm sorry.
oh yeah, you can go ahead. I think I already mentioned this briefly in the presentation, but for Petaluma, we've had about 13,000 customers participate in our rebate programs over time, and I don't have the statistics right in front of me about each different type of program and the uptake. But yeah, that information is also available. And just like Peter mentioned, and during the drought, we received a significant amount of water waste calls, reports of water waste, 300 to 400 a month from like July through October. And that we in a typical month when we're outside the drought, we'll receive maybe like 1 to 6 calls to report water waste.
Wow, amazing. Well, there's a comment in the chat which I'll read, and anyone would please respond to this. The presenters are talking about the 2020 water use targets, which are calculated taking 100% of water used and dividing it by our population. This number doesn't really reflect individual use because it includes water used by businesses and industry in the calculation. There are new state targets that will focus specifically on indoor residential water use. That is where the 52 to 55 gallons per person number is coming from. So this does address agricultural and industrial use, which the cities may not really be all that involved with the agricultural, but certainly you might be involved with the industrial. Would any of you like to comment on this?
I'll start, and again, we'll probably all chime in. The state's in the process of implementing some new laws around water conservation and water use called Conservation as a Way of Life. And those regulations are promulgating indoor per capita use standards and also some standards for other industries. And that's that indoor per capita use standard is the 52 to 55 gallon per person per day number that we're starting to hear bounced around. What all of us were talking about when we shared with you our 2020 targets came from a 2009 law, and it was a much grosser calculation. It's take all the water you sell and divide it by all the people you have, and that's your number. So agricultural use, industrial use, commercial use, landscape use was all lumped in the top line and divided by the number of people. So it was a good way to benchmark overall reduction in use, but it's not very helpful if you're trying to figure out how much water is being used inside a particular house.
Would anybody else like to add to that?
I don't have anything to add. Mary Grace hit the nail on the head on the residential use, but I do want to point out that the cities, by and large, don't serve agricultural users with potable water. We do supply recycled water to agricultural users, and some water, the water that is supplied to us through Lake Sonoma and through their aqueducts is for municipal and industrial use only. So,
and if I could finish up and just kind of add to what Mary Grace and Peter mentioned, the statewide conservation framework, which is working to set new water use efficiency targets for urban retail water providers, are really targets that are going to apply to utilities. And so the mention of the 52 to 55 gallons per person per day residential is really just one part of a formula that the state is using to create essentially an efficient water use budget for water utilities as the new way to set targets instead of using gallon per capita, as Mary Grace mentioned, which was part of the 2009 Water Conservation Act. And so it isn't to say that individual homeowners are going to be held to 55 gallons per capita per day. Those are efficiency benchmarks that our utilities are going to be using in a rolled up fashion to determine how our water is being used by our utility, both in terms of indoor residential, outdoor residential, landscape irrigation use for commercial and business purposes, efficient water loss for the water utilities' own transmission systems, the delivery pipes for water, and additional best management practices that, although aren't rolled up in the target setting, will be focused on utility practices to help businesses be more efficient. But there is a lot of misconception out there that the state's mention of a 55 gallon per person target that they're working towards applies somehow to individual homeowners, and that's not the case.
Does anyone else want to add to that particular question? I have one more question that's somewhat related to this. This is from Jim. Are agricultural and industrial commercial users included in the tier system, which was discussed in the various presentations?
So, obviously each utility is very different in how they set up their tiered system in terms of, I think we're talking about rates here.
Right.
Yeah, so we don't, have any potable agricultural users at the city of Santa Rosa, but we do have recycled water users. They do have, a per acre foot charge that they pay for delivery of recycled water. It is an interruptible supply. In terms of our industrial users, they do have in some cases a tiered structure. Each utility has to, when making these rate structures, has to comply with what's called Proposition 218 requirements. It was a voter passed, I guess, referendum that, required that water utilities and wastewater utilities set their rates in a very specific way that is very cognizant of the fact that no, I guess, ratepayer base is to be subsidizing others, right? So what we do as utilities when it comes to these different customer classes is we do everything we can to balance that they're paying the true freight of each piece of that water, and it's the true cost of that water. And so, obviously, in terms of public utilities, we are, nonprofit organizations, but there is a very formulaic way of how we set our rates for each of these customer classes.
Thank you. I have a comment here. This is probably for Rohnert Park. The city manager has told this person, the city, whoops, lost my place here. That the city has contracted with the city of Santa Rosa for a specified amount of recycled water, that they can get just so much and no more. And this was cited as a justification for using potable water for some public landscape. Is this?
I'll start, and Peter may back me up on this. We do have a contract with Santa Rosa for 1,350 acre feet of recycled water. We have in the past used more than that. As Peter indicated, the sub-regional systems recycled water supply, and I think Gina indicated this too, is impacted by the drought. And when it doesn't rain and people conserve water, there is at the treatment plant less recycled water to make available. As a result of that, this year in particular, and I believe last year also, Santa Rosa has had to really constrain their agricultural users. And they literally did call me up early this year and say, hey, you guys better knock it off and live within the terms of your contract. So until we can figure out how to help some of our recycled water customers be more efficient in their use, we have limited ability to add additional large landscapes to our recycled water portfolio. And we are in kind of an interesting position. We're going to start a study this year on how to conserve recycled water so that we can use that resource better and stretch it further within the community.
Thank you. So I have a comment here from Juanita. Since we can only reduce so much water use, I'm also interested in what is being done to get more water, specifically desalinization. Is that on anyone's agenda?
I punt to Jay on that one.
Sure. Yeah, desalinization is, it is an option, probably more feasible in the southern part of the county or in Marin County. Yet there are a lot of, it's expensive and it's energy intensive. So, in terms of greenhouse gas emissions, and you also have a brine waste you have to manage, which can be hazardous too. So there's a lot of issues with it, and it has its place, and it's certainly in Southern California and the Middle East and certain other areas which are definitely more water short. It really has a good place. We don't ever eliminate any options, but we work in order of priorities. And so from Sonoma Water's perspective and working with our water contractors, the area that we're really moving towards, in addition to maintaining conservation and maximizing recycled water, is really looking at our two other ways to meet demands, which are the surface water and the groundwater, and conjunctively managing those in a strategic manner. And we have work to do in that regard. But the use of winter water, in terms of utilizing winter water when our climate provides it, is not when we use the water. So we have a storage issue. And so we're looking at ways in which to maximize our storage in the surface water space, but also the biggest reservoirs we have are below our feet in the aquifers. And so taking that winter water, like I talked about, and recharging it as groundwater banking or floodwater managed aquifer recharge are areas where we really think for drought resiliency is that next priority, because every year since 1908, we've analyzed this, even 1977, even in 2021, we had natural flows, extra water flowing to the ocean that could have been, some of that could have been utilized if we have the systems in place to actually store that water for use in the, either during the summer or in the drought. And I think we're starting to make that pivot now to where we're going to be more of a coordinated and conjunctive management by using and working with Mother Nature a bit more so that we can utilize that winter water. And this is the trend for the climate models that are showing where we're going to actually, most of the climate models for our area, people are surprised, show that the average rainfall is going to be in the future for our region is going to be higher average precipitation than our historical. And I know we're in a drought and most people are surprised at that, but I think what the take home is, you can't really look at average when you're looking at water management, average rainfall. You have to look at the variability. So yeah, we may have slightly higher on average rainfall, but that doesn't really matter. From a water management perspective, we look at the variability. And what that tells us is the dries are going to be drier and the wets are going to be wetter. And so the variability is going to increase. We already know we have a variable climate and it's going to get more so. And so we have to start to change our way of operating and our systems to be able to work with this variability and take that extra surface water and put it in these different areas for storage. One other way that we're making extra water, so to speak, is with our surface water reservoirs. And I told you about this first of a kind program at Lake Mendocino, and we're going to be starting it at Lake Sonoma. forecast informed reservoir operations. And I showed you in that one chart how we gained about 11,000 acre feet in the first year of the drought, which really helped us and buffered that first year. So that's another way, working with reoperating our existing infrastructure where we can be more adaptive to our climate. So those are some of the things that we're looking at in addition to moving forward with our conservation programs, as you're hearing about, and recycled water, is really that better balancing and adaptive between winter water and summer water.
Well, that's a very good explanation that improved recycled water has to do with better storage, it seems to me, to capture the winter water.
Yes.
But we have one more comment and then perhaps we'll wind this down. This is from Rick. The new homes in Rohnert Park's University District are supplied with both potable and recycled water. The latter is used only for irrigation and flushing toilets. Why? And what happens if the supply of recycled water is too low, as we've just heard?
Yeah, let's clarify a few things. The recycled water in the University District and the other new developments in Rohnert Park is used for landscape irrigation. There are no indoor residential applications of recycled water. The reason we are undertaking the efficiency study with our recycled water system is we don't want to turn any of our recycled water customers off. We don't want to put them back on potable water. We need to find a way to stretch our recycled water, just like we've stretched our potable water, and get it to go a little further so that that landscape irrigation use in our parks, on our golf course, and in our new developments can continue.
All right. I see no more questions in the chat. So
Thank
Jim,
you,
I'll give
Leona.
it back to you and you can.
Okay, a couple of comments. One, LOCN had a major event tonight, their 8th annual State of the Latino Community Address. That was on the schedule, as ours was on the schedule for many months. We'll try to put a hot link to the recording of that event up on our website. Several of us would have liked to have attended that as well. I want to say that when you record a Zoom event, it also records the chat. And I will explore with Leona and Lynn if it's possible for us to edit the chat because of all those excellent websites and email addresses and so forth, to include that on our website as long as as well as the recording itself. So I just want to say, oh, Lynn's holding her hand up. Is she going to ask a question?
No, I was going to comment that the chat is savable on everyone's own computer. In the chat field at the very bottom, there are 3 dots that you can click on. And then if you click on those 3 dots and drop down to save chat, it will save it on your computer in its own little packaged little Zoom envelope in your documents. So you can save the chat right now with all of those links and have that available to you at any time. So
Thank you, Lynn.
thanks, Jim.
So I would like to thank Leona Judson and Gail Peterson for organizing this event for the League of Women Voters. Susan Richter is our timekeeper. Lynn Dooley and Judy Coleman were our behind the scenes Zoom managers. And I especially want to thank all of our excellent speakers, a wealth of information. I was going to try to make some remark about it floated by boat, but maybe it's too late for puns. I don't know. Anyhow, I thought that I learned a huge amount about what's going on from the experts and their presentations. So I want to thank you all again for doing that and turn it back to Leona for any final comments you want to make.
Well, the only thing I would like to add to that is I really encourage everyone to go to the Sonoma Marin new website. It just seemed like a wealth of information. So, and that is in our chat. So you should definitely check that out. So,
Okay, with that, I think
Heather,
we're ready to wrap up the evening.
look, Juanita has raised her hand. You're muted.
Yeah, I know. I just wanted to mention there's a news article running on our website that gives a lot of information about that new website and the consortium as well. So
Oh,
That's a good source for information, plus the resources on the website.
all right. Thank you very much.